Right. So we just kind of talk about whatever, and it's I think that's part of the joy of it for me. Is it's just a casual conversation. I get to know people. And
one of my favorite one is called "Word in Your Ear."
Okay.
It's two English former music magazine editors, and they're probably my age. And so they've got a lot of history, and they talk, and they worked in the print. You remember Mojo magazine? Well,
I don't think so.
Well, they worked with a lot of the in the 60s, 70s printed English music magazines.
Yeah.
So they covered punk, they covered glam, they covered everything, and they have these people on, and it's the same thing. And some people I've heard of, a lot of them because they're English, but they'll have I'm trying to think of who they had. George Martin, who produced the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
His son is remixing all the Beatles music, and so they had him on. So a lot of it is talking about the glory days, but then the new stuff too.
Yeah.
I don't like to dwell on the past.
Sure.
Because it's boring.
Yeah.
Look ahead.
Yeah, and it's to me, there's so many people doing so many interesting things. We got a email from a PR agent the other day about a guy who's making a documentary, or made a documentary, I should say. And at first I heard the title and I'm like, what? But he was born in a very restrictive, conservative Christian family. Mm-hmm. And then kind of rebelled and left and became a big early internet vlogger. Mm-hmm. And at some point his mother developed breast cancer and had a mastectomy and then reconstructive surgery. And then his father, who's this very much you don't talk about sex, anything, blah, 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 started manufacturing prosthetic nipples for breast cancer survivors. So the movie's called Mom and Dad's Nipple Factory.
Oh, that's great.
And I was just this is so bizarre and weird, and
that's great.
That's a great story,
Yeah.
Oh jeez, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I don't know what that is. But so you're into music, was that?
Are we taping now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. The red light, the green light is
yeah.
Okay. I often think about the Steve Martin and the jerk.
Yeah.
I was born a poor black child. Which we edit that out. But I'm a frustrated musician that became a photographer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I didn't really have the chops. I was a drummer.
Okay. I find that interesting. I was voted class musician, and I feel undeserved of the title.
What do you play?
At the time, I played clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, and guitar.
Cool.
And I think saxophone was my favorite, and that I was probably the best at.
Oh, that's a great instrument.
But the saxophone belonged to the school, so when I left school, it was but it was I feel I wasn't the best musician. I just was in that class. There wasn't a lot of male musicians, and
Where did you go to school?
Whitman Hanson.
Oh, sure. I grew up in Bryantville.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Pembroke guy.
Oh, nice.
No, what happened with me was Elvis stirred something in me, and I didn't know what it was because I was young. But
sorry, I thought someone was coming in. That was weird.
I remember watching Elvis on Ed Sullivan, kind of going. I don't know, I was maybe 10, maybe 8 or 9. And there's something going on there. And I didn't know what it was. And then fast forward to my generation of the Beatles just knocked everybody on their asses.
Yeah.
And so, of course, everybody wanted to be a musician. And everyone got instruments through Sears Roebuck's catalog.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm left-handed and I couldn't play the guitar because at that time, in the early middle 60s, they didn't have left-handed guitars. It was special order.
Right, yeah.
So what do? I became a drummer. And I could play in every band because everybody else played the guitar.
Yeah, that was always one of those, I felt I've never felt like I was the best artist or the best musician, but I've always been kind of the best at networking, kind of getting the word out and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I was kind of like, I should have played bass.
Everybody, well, therein lies the rub. I mean, the whole neighborhood, everyone's trying to play the guitar. Everybody was terrible. And I could flip the drums physically to play left-handed.
To play left-handed, yeah.
Whereas, you asked for a left-handed guitar and people looked at you like, because everybody got the Sears and Roebuck's catalog at that time.
Yep.
And they got the Silvertone guitars. I remember one of the guitars had an amplifier in the case.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that really gets me now is most of my friends bought those and didn't have the patience to learn how to play.
Yeah.
And those guitars are worth a fortune now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Dane Electro guitars.
Yeah.
And the Silvertone guitars. And they're like collector's items now because they're so cheaply made but so retro.
Yeah, yeah.
And they probably cost $75
Yeah.
then. And now they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, some of them.
That's funny. And it's like that nostalgic, like, oh, that was my first guitar kind of thing. Yeah.
So, that was the beginning of my alternative, like, there's something else going on, music. And then I often tell people, Ringo had the job I had, so I went another direction.
You went another direction. Yeah, it's interesting because like even I don't know what it is about like early on. Like I always drew.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
My sister, I have an older sister who was going to art school. She's about 2 years older than me, and still is amazing artist. And of course, sibling rivalry. She was getting all the attention.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to draw.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm left-handed. And so I could draw, but I couldn't draw well because I had that kind of hook.
Yeah, or you smudge it, or yeah.
But I could feel I had it in me visually to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the story is, she was going to the New England School of Art, and my best friend was going to the same school. And so I was around artistic people a lot, and they were always cool. They were always listening to cool music and everything. So I skipped school one day. I went to Silver Lake.
Okay. Yeah.
Skipped school one day with Mark, who ended up becoming a great illustrator and ended up working for Disney. And he's still down there. He's retired now. And I remember I skipped Silver Lake, which I never really liked high school. And I walked into the New England School of Art was near Symphony Hall. I don't know if it's still there now. It was on Huntington.
Okay, I'm not sure.
So I'm like 15 maybe. 16.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and we're walking down the hallway, and the first door on the left is a figure study class.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, a figure study class is
a nude model.
And I don't remember if she was attractive, but she was nude.
Right. Yeah.
And you didn't have that at Silver Lake.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, I like this place. This is I don't know what is going on here, but I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
And then we went down a little further down the hall, and there's people painting, there's people drawing, and they might have been sculpting. I don't know, it's a long time ago. And I just saw that kind of bohemian lifestyle. Everybody was jeans and music was playing, and I went, this is so much cooler than high school.
Yeah.
And I went, how do I become a part of that? So Mark, who brought me there, he graduated from the New England School of Art. I was probably a junior in high school at that time. And he joined the Navy to avoid Vietnam.
Okay.
And so he's cleaning stuff out.
Yeah.
And he used to crash at my house. My parents were very liberal in that sense, and so he goes, here. He gave me a camera, and I went, oh, cool. And it was a Minolta rangefinder.
Yeah.
35 millimeter film, and I go, yeah, this is kind of cool. So back in the day, you had to buy a roll of film, which is kind of bizarre to people now.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the photography classes I took were, I mean, I'm assuming they still teach like how to develop film and stuff, but
that's probably for another topic. There's
Yeah.
a lot of liability with darkrooms and chemicals. And
Yeah.
things, but you had to go to the drugstore and buy a roll of film.
Yep.
24 exposures or 36.
Mm-hmm.
I think 24 was a couple, like $2.
Yeah.
And if you had a lot of money, you buy a roll of 36.
Yeah.
So I bought a roll of 24, black and white. Didn't know what I was doing. Wandered around, and when you were done with the film, you had to take it back to the drugstore and fill out a little package, put the film in it,
Wait, what?
and wait a week.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was about a week. Yeah.
And you get the little package. I don't know if you I think you paid when you got it. And then, you go and say, my name's Nute, and they rifle, here's your package. Let's say the film was $2, $3. Developing was probably $5, maybe.
Yeah,
that's that's a bit of money back then. So the first roll of film I shot, I had about 3 photos that people liked. And as an artist, if someone likes what you do, you want to do it again.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember going, this is pretty cool. And the rest is history.
Was there kind of like a time when because I see it a lot when I go see like local bands, there's always like the friend photographer that's there like taking shots of them performing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It was more the artistic thing. I went to the library and I got books about all these great photographers who I still love. And there was something in black and white documentary photography.
Mm-hmm.
This is 66, 67, 68. And looking at these grainy 35 millimeter photojournalism things that just was like, wow, exotic places and gritty. And I wasn't drawn so much to like pretty landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was aware of it. But I don't know, it just kind of sucked me in, and that gave me the venue to do what I saw in my head that I couldn't do with my hands.
Yeah.
And so I got into the New England School of Photography in 1969. And it was a 2-year program, and that was just kind of, to go to a school where you just studied what you loved was just incredibly enlightening.
I was never better at drawing when I was in school.
Sure.
Because you were doing it 8 hours a day, every day.
And I wasn't, I never, I wasn't into football, I wasn't into all that stuff, and, I didn't want it. I regret now I'm not learning a language, and now looking back, but all that stuff was just, I wanted just to take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And, God, 50 odd years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
And I was just really lucky to be, a lot of what I've done, and I was thinking about this today, this is your life, Ed Nute kind of thing. I've been really, really lucky, and I've been really, really blessed with good friends and being in the right place at the right time. I mean, because I don't know if I could do what I've done now.
Yeah.
What I did then.
Well, let me ask you for a bit of advice, because I am, so Inebri-art's been around for like since 2011.
I think we met when you first started. I was at Mary Shields.
Yep.
Building.
Yeah. Gorgeous building.
Oh, it's still gorgeous.
Yeah, I was walking by it the other day, and I'm with some friends. I'm like, you need to see this building sometime. But so now I've been doing this full time for about 2.5 years since I got laid off from COVID, and there's now times when it's getting stressful or feeling like work. And how have you in the past kind of taken that moment to remind yourself of, not everyone gets to do what they love?
Again,
I'm assuming you've had stressful days.
I haven't done it recently. I go to Johnson & Wales.
Yeah.
And I talk about food photography.
Yeah.
Because that's what we'll probably talk about in a minute. And so it's kind of a kitchen setup, and the kids will cook stuff, and I'll photograph, tell them what, blah, blah, blah. So they do a Q&A, how long you been doing this? And I tell them how long, and they go, how old are you? And someone asked me, do you like what you do? I said, I love what I do most of the time.
Yeah.
And they go, what do you mean most of the time? I said, well, if anybody likes what they do all the time, they're crazy.
Right.
Because nothing is perfect. So I'd say 80% of the time, I have a blast.
Yeah.
But there's that 20% of the time when you get a client that you don't click with, or things just don't happen. And I've learned to realize that, not take it personal. Not everyone's going to like you.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to like the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And but that 80% is gravy. I mean, I've got a pretty busy week coming up of all kinds of just really cool stuff. And my job, I'm a commercial product photographer.
Yeah.
And I just did a shoot at Symphony Hall about a month ago. I was there for a whole day with a young kid orchestra. I was in there at 10 in the morning when no one was in Symphony Hall. I mean, come on.
Those are some of the coolest things. Like, that's even before we were doing this full time, people would be like, oh, do you make money at this? And I'm sure you get that kind of question. You make a living taking pictures of food?
Of course.
But even at the time, like when we weren't, I'd be like, no, but we get to do some really cool things,
Well, it's a trade-off. And I have these certain little patent things that I say that my kids and my wife will go, God, he's doing that again. And I often say I never got in this to get rich. It's really worked out that way.
Yeah.
But I look at where I've gone, what I've done on my own terms.
Yeah.
And and I'm not a religious, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious. I've been blessed. I mean, I've been doing this for over 50 years. I've never not been a photographer. I've never had to take another job.
Yeah. I'm envious. I've had real jobs, quote unquote, real jobs.
Well, I've done photography jobs that I did weddings, and I realized I'm not going to do weddings.
Yeah.
And as anybody in any trade, you find your niche.
Mm-hmm.
And my niche was fine arts photography, which I still do, but I can't make a living doing that.
Right.
So what's the alternative? Finding professional people that need photos. And you've got to look back in 1970 when things were printed, things were different. I couldn't do now what I did then.
Yeah.
And the networking that I had with people. I was basically in Plymouth. I've been in Plymouth for over 40 years, and I'm not saying I was the only photographer in Plymouth, but at certain points I was the only one really doing commercial work. And there's a lot of, you mentioned PR earlier, there's a lot of PR work, and I did it, I didn't care for it, but it was, I call them grip and grin pictures.
Okay.
You had newspapers, you had the Patriot Ledger, you had the Brockton Enterprise.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The O'Connelly, you had a bunch of weeklies around. So some bank donates money to the YMCA. Well, they want a picture of it.
Oh, so yeah.
We call them the grip and grin photos.
Yeah.
And there's a ribbon cutting.
Yep.
I did those. There's something you did. Didn't push my artistic limits. But you got to meet people, and they go, "Do you have a card?" And so I picked up Rockland Trust in the '70s. I did all their work, and the Plymouth Five, and everybody kind of knew everybody.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of thing. I know a guy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of those. We have now built ourselves to that point where we're not having to cold call people and explain what it is and what we do, and we have people calling us and even pitching us on new events and ideas, being like, this is the kind of thing we want, will you run it for us? And we're like, I mean, you just told me how to do it, sure, why not?
It's interesting. I mean, you can't stay still, you have to evolve. I'm not a real business person. I have everybody wanting me to join, and this Joe Groucho Marx thing, any club that
wants me as a member.
I would never join.
Yeah.
I joined the chamber, no knocks on the chamber, but it never really got me anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt that at certain times, that, I wasn't maybe out and about as much as I used to, but I always get by. I mean, I never, I raised two great kids and been married for the same woman, and got to travel, and I was thinking about this over the weekend when you approached me about, it's been really great. The people I've met and the weird situations I've got in, all because of the camera.
Yeah, and it's like, I always think of it when you meet someone at a bar, and you'd be like, hey, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm in construction. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then people are like, what do you do? And you explain what they do, and suddenly they have thousands of questions because it's a weird lifestyle.
Well, it's funny how that has changed because everyone's a photographer now.
Yeah, the bar for entry is much lower.
And I remember being at parties or cocktail parties back in the day, and someone would say, oh, you must be busy this time of year with weddings. And I go, I don't do weddings. Do you work for a newspaper? I go, no, I don't work for, what do you do? I photograph stuff. And they go, all right. I mean, a lot of what I did never saw the light of day because it went to very specific audiences.
Right.
I did a lot of industrial photography over the years.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like a perfect example. Today, I get these 2 little clips that go onto canes.
Yeah.
Walking canes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the kind of thing that clips onto your cane, so when you go into the supermarket, you can kind of hang your cane on the basket.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I've got to photograph that this week.
Yeah.
Talk about sexy photography. Yeah. But that's what I've done. I mean,
Yeah.
I've photographed more things that I don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
But I'd have the engineer with me.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I was doing tabletop product photography back in the day on film, and people would say, we made this widget, this thing. The engineer would come in and say, well, we need to show that screw going in there, the base of I don't know what they were half the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but, you give them a good, clear photo that tells the story, and then that would go into a trade publication.
Yep.
And if you're not in that trade,
you're not going to ever see it. Yeah.
Now it would go onto a website.
Right.
And that kind of thing. But back then, there were catalogs and instruction manuals all printed. And like everything, the printing has disappeared. There's no need for it anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's all on the line. So that's what I did then I got connected with Ocean Spray, which turned me on to the food aspect of it.
So every once in a while I'll see an article online somewhere pop up and be like, oh, here's 20 tricks that food photographers use to like make food look like the way food is, because there's things that are lost in translation when you're looking at food.
Well, you're not supposed to tell those secrets. And most of those things I've never done.
Yeah.
Everybody knows more about what I do than I know.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So they'll go, oh, I saw an article about food photography.
Yeah.
And I go, and I know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
They put Elmer's glue in cereal.
For the milk? Yeah, I've heard that.
Think about that for a minute. How is that going to work? It's going to dry, and you're going to have a big white glob of Elmer's glue.
Yeah.
So what you do, we could do a whole thing about food photography. I mean,
yeah.
It stands to reason things have to be enhanced and embellished, like anything.
Yeah.
Like when you do a portrait, you
sure.
put a little more makeup on and that kind of thing. So with food, things have to kind of be propped up a little bit and finessed a little bit. But most of this, 9 times out of 10, I go, it's the Elmer's glue story. Or the food is fake. And I'll go, there's a thing that I learned years ago is if you make food.
Yeah.
When I worked for Ocean Spray, they were selling recipes. They weren't selling the food.
Okay.
They were saying you buy the cranberries, but then you get so I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right. There was something about a truth in advertising. If you sell a product, cereal,
okay, yeah.
you have to show that in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sell a recipe, you don't have to show that. You can
show the end product.
You can fake it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we prop stuff up. We put a little tin foil into something or paper towel into something. But I've worked with so many amazing chefs. If the food looks good, and you're working with a talented food stylist, which is another word that's kind of gone by. I used to have to hire someone that would do the food. And I have, do you know Stephen Coe?
Yeah.
He does my food.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we're going to do a shoot this week for the Food Network.
Yeah.
And I know what I need to do on my end of the shoot. Mm-hmm. And I respect Stephen, who I think I've worked with Stephen for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I've worked with other people. They know how to do that. So you say, okay, we need to do a hamburger. They just know exactly what they need to do.
Right.
But the thing I love is when I meet people and they go, how come the McDonald's hamburger doesn't look like the photo?
Yeah.
And I go, what can I say? It's been embellished. It's like when you look at anything. Now the problem I have is with AI or whatever we're doing, Lord knows if it's a real hamburger.
Yeah,
if it's a real person.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're getting into an incredibly gray area. I remember photographing, it was salmon, and I was working for somebody, and the salmon was cooked for about 5 minutes, but the food stylist had this kind of wand that kind of glowed, She took it out of it's a heating element.
Oh, okay.
This is probably 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And she got that hot, and she put the barbecue.
Oh, like the little grill marks on it?
Grill marks.
Yeah.
And she had a ruler.
Yeah.
To measure where the grill marks went.
Yeah.
Oh, this was for Whole Foods. I worked for Whole Foods when they were Bread and Circus or whatever they are now.
Yeah.
They're Bread and Circus. Now they're Whole Foods. And so she says, well, you gotta measure the. Well, it stunk. It smelled.
Sure. Yeah.
It was salmon that had sat for 4 hours.
And now you're burning it.
It looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, do you eat the food that you shoot? And I go, no.
Yeah, because it's sitting under lights and.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when someone plays a song all day in the studio with music, and last thing they want to hear when there's that song again.
Yeah.
You know, or anything you do. You know, yeah, I'm not saying I don't eat.
Yeah.
Now, where we are now across the street is Bark Barbecue.
Yes, there is. Good food there.
I
Yeah.
did their food when they opened.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And they are wonderful people.
Yeah.
I recommend that very highly. The Hush Puppies.
Oh, I haven't had those yet. I think I've only eaten there once. I love barbecue, so I try not to go too much.
Well, you know, it's that if you go there, and I recommend to go there, you got to take the afternoon off.
Yeah, need a nap afterwards.
You have a brisket sandwich, and you're useless.
Yeah.
But they're real cooks.
Yeah.
Kurt is just a master of. I don't think anybody. I got to be careful when I work for a restaurant, because I've recommended some restaurants and people haven't had a great meal.
And that's always a trick, and like, because I have people, you know, friends or family or whatever, will come down to Plymouth and be like, oh, what should I do? And you start making recommendations, and then you're like, oh, but it's Tuesday, nothing's open on Tuesday, that kind of thing.
Well, the other thing too is it's going out to dinner, which I don't do a lot of anymore. I just don't feel like it. It's not cheap.
No, it's not. Not at all.
And I won't name the restaurant. Well, it was a restaurant, and I did their photos. And again, to your point, someone came and I said, "Oh, go to my friend's restaurant."
Yeah.
And so this was like a Friday night. So Monday, my phone rings, and they go, "Hey, I want to talk to you about that restaurant you recommended." It was the worst meal we ever had.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah.
they go, $150 later, and I'm like, "Oh, so I don't try to recommend."
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about Bark, and I'm not a barbecue connoisseur, but I can't think anybody I've talked to has not gone there and been impressed with it.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of places that say they do barbecue.
Yes, and most are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I like about what they do is that's what they're good at.
Yeah.
The thing about Kurt is when he's out of something, he's out of it.
And which is a very barbecue thing. Like,
If you've been to the South, yes, get there by 3:00.
Yeah, sorry, you're out. And
Yeah.
there's a place in Western Mass, in Sturbridge, called BT Smokehouse.
Yeah.
Phenomenal barbecue. And it is one of those, like, it'll start to come down the line. Did they just say they're out of brisket? Did they just say they're out of brisket?
Yeah.
They better not be out of brisket before I get up there, you know?
I was driving home, like I live in Kingston, and I noticed they had Bark had a shrimp poor boy.
Oh, that sounds good.
And so I pull in, and they just sold the last one. So they promised they call me next time they do it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is they kind of just do things. They're just come up with a different sandwich. Like he did a brisket, almost like it looked like a brisket Benedict.
Oh, interesting.
With an egg.
Yeah.
Maybe a hollandaise sauce. It was. But I can't eat like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like I would need a nap afterwards, for sure.
Well, any excuse for a nap is good. So yeah, it's been, the thing that I like about the work that I've done is I'm always learning.
Yeah.
You know, I would never have the audacity to say I know everything about everything, photography-wise, but I remember someone called me years ago, and they said, "Do you do jewelry?" And I said, "Well, I'm aware of jewelry. Can you give me a couple of your pieces and I can kind of fool around with it?"
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with food. What happened was Ocean Spray had their corporate headquarters down in Plymouth.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
And this was like 1978, 79. And they called me and they wanted to know if I could develop a roll of film. And I had a darkroom in my house.
Yeah.
A black and white darkroom. I went, yeah. So I went down and I met this guy named Jack Caney, who ended up being a dear friend. And he's about my age. And Ocean Spray at that point in the late 70s, early 80s was starting to really expand into blended drinks, cran, grape, and cran.
Cran.
And they were hiring people, and they were all kind of my age, so they needed port headshots.
Mm-hmm.
So I had converted my garage in Kingston to a little studio, not much bigger than this room we're in now.
Yeah.
And so
the new Inebri-art podcast studio.
This
is the first one we
I know
recorded
you folks
here.
can't see it, but this is incredibly plush. I can't tell you.
The word adequate jumps to mind.
Decadent would be the word that I would say. And so, someone would come in for a portrait. We talked. They just moved to the area, and they were my age, a little older, a little younger, and they hired maybe 50 people, and they go. They were in marketing. They were research and development and all that stuff. So I got into them again, unintentional, right place at the right time. And then they called me one day and they said, "Can you photograph a cranberry muffin?" And I went, my whole thing is if it doesn't move, I'm your guy.
Okay, yeah.
If it sits on the table, I'm your guy. And I did a cranberry muffin, and they liked it, and then they did another shoot, and another shoot, and another one, and then someone left Ocean Spray and went to Bread and Circus at the time, which is now Whole Foods.
Yeah.
I ended up working for them. Another person left and went to Welch's Grape Juice, and I worked. So I'd love to say I had a plan. No, it was just. I think if you're a good person and you do good work, it comes back.
I agree completely.
And I am certainly not the best food photographer in the world. But the thing that bothers me a little bit now is, and I think we talked about it a few minutes ago, you just don't get the relationships that I had back then.
Yeah.
And because these people became very, very good friends.
Yeah.
And they looked out for me, and I looked out for them, and they would say, so they would, Ocean Spray sent me all over the country because I knew what they needed, and they knew I'd come back with what they wanted.
Right.
And I'm not saying you don't have those relationships now, but it's like sitting across the table with you and looking and talking to you. I kind of miss that.
I prefer this so much more. And when we started doing podcasts, we had gotten some really great offers for guests, and I'm like, sorry, they have to be in person. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I have no choice. We either do them Zoom or not at all. And so we started doing them through Zoom, and I don't know if level of guest, the familiar, I can't even say that word now.
Yeah, I can't.
Want to help me out? the noteworthy of the guest exponentially jumped. Which is beneficial to the podcast to have a bigger name guest. Not that one guest is better than the other. I mean,
well, today's huge.
Some guests are better than the others, but it's not necessarily just based on their name. But so now it's just like, okay, we have now, that is something we do. We Zoom podcasts all the time.
I did a pizza shoot with Stephen Cole, and it was the first Zoom photo shoot I did.
Oh, that's weird. How? How does that work?
How much time we got? I got a phone call about a year and a half ago from, I think they're called Boblio Pizza Crusts.
Oh yeah.
You see them in the store. They're kind of cryovac bags, and
they're kind of like already cooked. So you just like put the toppings on and melt it.
I gotta be careful what I say here. Yeah. They are what they are.
Yeah.
So the phone rings and like, the thing that gets me now is my phone rings all the time. It's all sales calls, but it says Duxbury. It says Pembroke.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm entitled to $2 million or something like that.
No.
So the phone rings, and there's actually a person, and she says, "Hi, I can't remember her name now. I'm with Boblio Pizza Crust." And I went, "Oh yeah, I've seen you stuff. We're redoing our packaging because during COVID, their sales went up like 100%.
Okay, I could see that.
Because Friday night pizza night.
Yep, everyone's home making pizza.
Yeah. And I went, yeah. I probably bought some. We need to do our packaging over and update it to maintain the momentum that they got because of the pandemic.
Yep.
And we want to show actually pizzas on the crusts on the package. I'm sorry. I went, yeah. I said, wait a minute. Where are you? in Philadelphia. I went, well, I'm in Plymouth. Yeah, we know. I went, how the heck did you find me? And they said, John Marcoux. I worked with John Marcoux at Ocean Spray.
Yeah.
Haven't talked to him in probably 25 years. I went, wait a minute, before we do anything, give me his phone number. I said, I got to call.
Yeah.
And they said, we heard you're good. And I said, well, okay, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to send you everything. Do you have someone that can cook it? And I said, yeah, I got a chef that can do it. Okay. And what we do is we do it through Zoom. And I went, all right. So I called John, and he was living downtown Plymouth when he ended up moving to Philadelphia to work. So the company that owns the pizza crust, they're called Bimbo Bakeries.
Okay.
Out of Mexico.
All right.
No line.
Yeah.
But they deal with grain and flour.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the spin-offs are these pizza crusts.
Okay.
So it's a subsidiary of, of this bigger... I don't want to even think where the name Bimbo Bakery came from.
I'm hoping it means something different in Spanish.
So he said we were using a photographer in Philly, and something happened. And so he said, and he's part of marketing.
Yeah.
And he said, I know a guy. It was me. And I said, geez, I can't thank you enough. And we caught up, and kids, and 25 years later. He goes, well, Ed, if you can't photograph pizzas, you should get out of business. So I said, well, how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
So I got a hold of Stephen, and we had a kitchen we could use. They sent me boxes and boxes of the crusts. And we started at 8 o'clock one morning to do 3 pizzas. We ended up doing 8 hours on just a cheese pizza.
Wow.
So we get set up.
Yeah.
I take a photo, put it in my laptop, make a folder, email it to them. Wait. Beep. Zoom meeting. Crust is too dark. Cheese isn't cooked enough. Okay, fine. Click. Another pizza. Folder, email, Zoom. Another half an hour, 20 minutes.
Jeez.
Okay, cheese is too... Because you know,
you're right.
The crust is it's a weird product.
Yeah.
And to get that balance of... And that's why I hire people to cook.
Sure.
We started at 8, and I think about 3:30, 4 o'clock that afternoon, we got one.
Yeah.
And so it pushed the whole shoot into another 2 or 3 days, which was fine with me.
Right.
And we had a stack that was about 2 feet tall of pizzas.
Pizzas that were not right.
And we were at a country club that we were shooting that Stephen could get the kitchen to do it. And people were taking them home. I went, okay, if you want to do that. So it was a little disconcerting because you don't get that rhythm going when you have the client in the studio. And the thing when you have the client in the studio, they can see your limitations or your advantages because they're part of the process.
Right.
They're seeing a photo, boom. Cheese isn't right. Crust isn't right. And so our language got very colorful as the day went on. It was fun.
Yeah.
About 2 o'clock, we're giddy.
Yeah.
You know,
because you're making the same pizza all day.
And what's funny is you spend 8 hours doing something, it throws on a package, and people just look at it glancing.
Yeah, like people see it, but they don't really look at it.
Right, and you go, no, damn it, you look at that. You know how long it took to do that? And then the other shots we did work, because we had more toppings. We did a cauliflower crust, and we did a vegetable and pepper. I mean, probably 3 hours of getting the pepperoni right.
Yeah.
And it worked out well. So my whole thing is to keep the photo shoots light. As an artist, you got to keep things moving, and you can't be creative if everything's down.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I put on some tunes.
Yeah.
People love the photo studio. It's like oh, this is great, and that again, that's just a wonderful gift that I've gotten to do that. And then at the end of the day, whether it's a pizza or whether it's the little cane things that go on the cane, the client goes, "That's really good," and they go, "That was fun. That was a good shoot," and it should be.
Yeah.
You can't be creative if everybody's down.
No.
I did have a client that I just couldn't work with.
So how do you handle that? Because I mean, I feel like that is something that more and more is happening. I shouldn't say more and more, but just the more work you do, you're just going to run into more.
I can count on one hand in the 50 years I've been a photographer, on one hand the times that I've had a bag out on a shoot.
Yeah.
And one was about a year or two ago. I won't tell you who, where, or what, but I just could not appease this person. That's okay, but. And my wife could see how it was really wearing me down. And she said, look, walk away from it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need the money that bad for that kind of aggravation.
Right.
And so she's my great center. She goes, it's not worth it. And you get a little arrogant as you get older. Cause when you're younger, you want to work for everybody.
Right.
And when you're young, you want everybody to like what you do. I mean, why do we do what we do if we don't get response back?
Right.
But you got to realize that it's not going to happen all the time. And in this particular case, I got back and I just said, Chris goes, look, just email her. So I emailed her and said, look, you need to find another photographer. Then my phone just explodes.
Yeah.
What's the problem? And I go, Jesus, lady, what's the problem? I go, look, we're fine. You just pay me for what I've done. Or honestly, at that point, I didn't care. I just don't need the aggravation.
Right.
Because it's like, and I go back to the music thing. I look at photography like music. You get together with 3 or 4 musicians and you start a song and you start jamming. That song might start out with a reggae beat, but by the end it evolves. Yeah. And a photo shoot's the same way. You get a rhythm going, you get a vibe going. Okay, what else if we put that over there, or move that over there? And the client is as much of the photo shoot as I am. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I have to respect the client. They know the product better than I do. Right. Like, no, we need more light in that corner. We need to show that.
Yeah, we need to show that screw going into that thing. Because that's the whole point of this gizmo. And you're like, oh, okay.
So when I do food, I go, what's the demographic? What's the vibe? Yeah. Okay, it's a brunch. Okay, and then there's a lot of food styling and props that go into the food shoot. Okay, we're looking for a Sunday brunch. So that's, bright colors and fruit, things like that. Fine dining, glass of wine, maybe a little more moody, that kind of thing. So I look at it, it's almost like we're writing a song, and at the end of the photo shoot, we get a tune. Yeah. And hopefully you like it. And I've been lucky that I was doing a shoot, and we needed to do something, and I wasn't getting the light right. So I said to the people I was with, I think it was Ocean Spray, can you just leave me alone for about a half an hour? And I came up with it was a barbecue shot inside without a barbecue. Okay. And what I came up with wasn't working. So I took a piece of tinfoil and I crumbled it up, put it under the grill, the fake grill we had. Yeah. And I ran a red light across the tinfoil, and it looked like briquettes. And I go, man, I'm good. So I said, guys, this is when I'm shooting film and shooting Polaroids. Yeah. Which is a whole other lost art.
Those were coming back for a bit.
Everything comes back. Yeah. But it doesn't come back. Yeah. It's like vinyl's coming back. Yeah, it does, but it doesn't. Yeah. Heaven forbid 8-tracks come back.
I'm okay with those not being here.
Yeah. Well, I do think my studio's in the PAC building now, and one of the younger kids there just bought a film camera. He really wants to get into film. So, things do come back.
Yeah, I interviewed a guitarist from a band in LA, and, their new album was coming out, and I'm like, tell our listeners where they can find the album, whatever. And he's like, here, there, blah, blah, blah. And, he's like, it'll be on vinyl and cassette. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. He's like, yeah, we're putting it on a cassette. That's like a...
well, I'm not,
okay.
Retro's great. The thing is, do you have a cassette player?
Yeah, I'm like...
I probably have like 3 of them in my basement.
Yeah, but I mean, like, to me, vinyl has like a sound quality that you only get on vinyl.
There's something very romantic about vinyl.
Yeah, and like the process, like you interact with it, you put the needle down carefully, and it's more the experience. Cassette is just like... garbage.
Yeah,
It doesn't have the sound quality.
Well, and it's clunky. And
they self-destruct, you know.
And you want to play another song, you lift up the needle, you got it.
Yeah.
You got it. I remember the programming of 8-tracks, which I never got into. I never could. And the thing that got me about 8-tracks is they were editing songs to fit the 8-track.
Oh, really?
And so there was a song, Allman Brothers song or something, and they cut out like the last minute of it because it didn't fit
into the track.
Onto the tape or whatever they were doing. Okay, I'm not going to get involved in that.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yeah, so it's kind of like dealing with the technology now has made me, it keeps me on my toes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went digital about 20 years ago. Never thought I would be digital because I used to go to these trade shows in Boston and there was printers and all this stuff, and there'd be a guy in the corner with a digital camera.
Yeah.
And
be like, this is the wave of the future.
Nobody was talking to him.
Yeah.
Because he had a camera about the size of this table.
Yeah.
And so I go over and he goes, well, yeah, this camera's only, $40,000. And back then, I don't know if they were even megapixels, what they were dealing with. They were, what the term was.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 1 megapixel.
Yeah.
And now your phones have, 40 megapixels. So flashback to think about that. You go, well, thanks, buddy. And he goes, and then about a year later, I'm looking at 20 years ago, worlds collided, the quality went up and the price came down.
Yep.
And my clients said, we got to go digital. And I went, all right. So the thing, you can't rest on your laurels, I think, on anything you do now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this whole AI stuff, Lord knows what we're going to have to figure out with that.
It's really fascinating because a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to put people out of work and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I feel like they say that about any new technology.
And to a certain degree, it will. It will.
But it may also create new jobs that didn't exist before. Because,
of course.
Because I've been using ChatGPT a lot. Because it's so much easier to just be like, write an email to this person about this, and it spits out an email.
It's a tool.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, that's putting a writer out of work. I'm like, no, because I wasn't going to hire a writer to do it. It just makes my product seem more professional.
Well, I think in my field, it has eliminated jobs.
Oh, I can, yeah. And there's like illustrators and stuff that.
Yeah, and it's not just photography.
Yeah.
It's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I was based in Plymouth, but I know there were probably a dozen photographers doing what I did here in Boston. Over at Dry Dock, there was Clint Clemens. There were all these photographers making huge studios and just budgets and all shooting on film. Incredible productions and all that, shooting on 4x5, which is what I did down. I never had those kind of budgets down here, and those days are gone.
Yeah.
I had a friend that had what do you call it? They would edit books and stuff like that, and they opened up. Him and his wife opened up a little studio, and all of a sudden, desktop publishing came in.
Yep.
And literally overnight, they lost all their work.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing was they were doing that for companies. They would give them the text. They would do whatever they did. All of a sudden, you had a program, and you could. I don't need them anymore.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. In a week,
they're gone.
They're out of business. So you've got to reinvent yourself to a degree,
mm-hmm.
but sometimes you can't because it's just. And I have no real opinion about cell phone photography. I don't think about it. I've taken 2 pictures on my cell phone.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. I'm not interested. But that has replaced a lot of what I do.
Yeah.
And I look at, there's some pretty good work being done.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on who's doing it.
Sure, yeah.
Crap in, crap out.
Yep.
It's like my friends who had recording studios in Boston, like Fort Apache and all those places. Suddenly you have GarageBand.
Yep, and it's so weird because it opens up, like, the bar of entry is so much lower. Like, so many more people can do it, but then it almost, like, takes away some of the expertise.
Of course.
Yeah.
we have a good friend, Sean McLaughlin. He has 37-foot production studios in Rockland.
Mm-hmm.
And he's survived because he's just, but I think most of the studios in Boston are gone now.
Yeah.
Because you could do that on your laptop. Well, could you really? Well, you could.
Yeah.
But you're not getting the sound, you're not getting the vibe, and my son's a great drummer, and he lost a lot of work when drum machines came in.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden people go, we're sick of drum machines.
Yeah.
And we need somebody breathing. We
Mm-hmm.
need someone playing. So but that percentage of that work wasn't as much as it was before.
Right.
I had a woman call me, and she makes, lack of a better word, tchotchkes, T-shirts and things like that. But it's all high end. And she's based in Plymouth, and she was impressed that I called her right back. Because I need to talk to someone on the phone.
Yeah.
I'll get an email. I go, well, can I call you?
Yeah.
And in 5 minutes, I can tell you if I can help you or not. Or
Right. Yeah.
maybe I can recommend somebody else or something. And so she says, oh, it's so good to talk to someone. I said, well, tell me what you need. And she makes, she has a lot of clients down in Nantucket.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're those promotional things, but they're all high end.
Yeah.
Golf tournaments and golf caps and shirts and coasters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do a shoot with her later this week, and she's just so pleased to find that I got that little niche.
Yeah.
But, those jobs are few and far between, because it's easy to take a photo with you. And I don't know a lot about cell phone cameras, but, I've seen some really, really good work done with them. And the word that I really hear all the time is apps. We got an app.
Yeah, you go and tweak it in an app or edit it.
Like the one app that just blows my mind is the one that you can just eliminate a background in a photo.
Oh yeah, I love that. I use that. I use that in Canva all the time.
Well, you know how difficult that was in my business.
Oh, I bet you it was insane.
Yeah. And now it's like you can just touch. You go, oh, I'm done.
And we're such like human beings that when it first happens, you're like, this is amazing, and now your computer's taking that extra half a second to do it, and you're like, come on.
I just roll my eyes and I go, but the bottom line is, it's okay. And I think the problem I've had with my food photography is the food business is just messed up now.
Yeah.
With getting help and cost prices. I think the COVID thing has affected us more than we think it did.
Oh yeah.
The residual effect.
Oh yeah, in so many ways.
Exactly. Not just me.
Yeah.
I'm not poor mouthing or anything like that. But so when a new restaurant opens, they can barely have enough people to run the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in and go, hey, I'm a hotshot food photographer, and they go, well, geez, we just don't have the money to do that. And they'll do shots with their phones, and I'll look at them and I'll go, not as good as what I can do.
Right.
But I understand that. What commercial photography? We're not cheap.
Yeah.
It's expensive. The bottom line is you're getting a better product, but the bottom line is the bottom line.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's one of those like exactly with that AI. It's going to put writers out of business. It's like yes, but it's also going to allow other businesses to have a higher quality of writing that they wouldn't have had because they didn't have the funds to hire a writer.
It's a tool. It'll be abused.
Of course.
It'll screw things up, but it's only as good as the person running it.
Yep.
One of my other favorite, someone, you still working? I go, yeah, I'm working. I love to work. I don't want to. I don't play golf. This is what I do. And I remember Neil Young was touring with Pearl Jam.
Yep. Probably like 94-ish.
And they said, why are you going out with these guys, these young guys? He says, you either get on the bus or the bus goes by you. And that's the way. So I've learned enough digital to be dangerous.
Yeah.
I've got good friends that help me. I don't claim to know. I feel like when I make a photo, I try to get it 99% right.
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop has become a crutch, like any tool.
Yeah.
We can fix it. And I'm like, well, just give me a minute. And because, again, back in the day, we didn't have that luxury.
Right.
So when I was moving my studio last year to the new studio I have, I found these outtakes of 4x5 film. And it was a camera that had a bellows.
Oh, sure.
And I put black cloth over my head.
Yep.
And people think I'm kidding. I used that for probably 30 years. and you shot a 4x5 inch piece of film.
Yeah.
And so I found these outtakes of different jobs I did. I'm like, man, that's a really good shot. You could go in and airbrush.
Yeah.
This is before digital. You could, but you had the time. The pace was slower. You had the time. When I was doing big product food photography, we'd take 2 pictures a day.
2 a day?
Yeah. Because of the process.
Right.
You put the items down. I put the black cloth over my head, adjust the camera, and do a Polaroid. The Polaroid takes 90 seconds to develop.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, well, did you watch the Celtics last night? And then you peel it away and you go, oh man, we got to move that cranberry 2 inches to the right or to the left. Boom, another Polaroid. That's another 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And you go, oh no, it was better the way it was.
Yeah.
Boom. So, that's 3 minutes. Now do that for 50 shots over an 8-hour period, it's probably an hour.
Yeah.
Of Polaroids. But you didn't know any different.
Right.
You had a cup of coffee, you sat, shot.
That was the best way to do it at the time.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, it's funny because we've just been dabbling in like video and video editing, and my system is not capable of doing the things that we want to necessarily do. So there's some times where I have to export the file, which takes 3-4 hours. And then you go, oh, the audio's off by like 1/10 of a second. So then you go back and you adjust the audio, and then you export it, and you're like, I moved it in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I kind of like. I spend a lot of time in the darkroom.
Yeah.
And I don't miss that. But again, and I'm probably repeating myself. These are just tools. It doesn't make. You look at GarageBand and you can pull out a drum track or a guitar track. Well, it's not like someone really sitting down and really playing and that kind of thing. And I look at the photography, it embrace the technology, but don't neglect the past.
Yeah.
And bring those things to the play, to the party, and use those. Because honestly, when you screw something up, it is great to have Photoshop that you can fix it.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. But when you're shooting 300 or 400 pictures a day, and I find I'm pulling back. I just did a catering food shoot, and editing is really important.
Okay.
Because it's just like, and I go online and I see people posting 75 pictures or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. You don't need 75 pictures of anything.
Yeah.
You need 5, 4, 2. And it's just like photo after photo after photo after photo. It's quantity, not quality.
Right.
So when I do a shot of food, you do the obligatory wide shot, kind of 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shot that you do. And then what I always say, okay, I take the camera off the tripod and I go in and I move around and do close-ups.
Yeah.
Mainly for my own amusement, but when I do food, I like to have the food in your face.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, that looks delicious. If someone says they're hungry, I'm done.
Yeah.
I did my job.
Right.
And if you pull back, it's diluted. If you go in and say, okay, here's the burger, but maybe just get a side of the burger.
Yeah.
Close, or a lower angle or a higher angle. That's just so much fun. And that's where digital is great. But, I don't need to do 50 pictures of that. I can do 10.
Yeah.
So I find myself being a little more selective in my shooting. Even when I go around, I've been doing a series of night shots in Plymouth over the last 2 years. I just love when what is it, daylight saving, whatever, when it gets dark at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I've been
You're the only one.
I know. So I've been doing the waterfront and the cordage, and I've got about 30 or 40 black and white night shots.
Yeah.
But I just don't shoot. I look, and I just did a talk at the Howland House about photography. Photography is, you've got a box,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends what you put in that box. The box is your frame.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so easy to shoot so much now
And that you'll accidentally get something that looks good.
Well, I have no problem with you shooting 300 pictures. I just don't want to see them all.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to see the 5 pictures that are really good.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's the editing process of like, if you show those 30 or 40 pictures, you're kind of diluting what you're doing.
Right.
There's no drama to it anymore. If you show those 4 pictures, you go, oh, those are really great, as opposed to going through all the other ones, because it's like where the good ones lost.
Right.
And but just think of what you can do. I think it's so exciting to be young now and have all this stuff at your fingertips. I've got a 11-year-old granddaughter, and it's just like, God, the world is just, you can travel, you can.
Yeah, my youngest is just turned 19, is selling commission artwork and does it all from their iPad.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I wish I kind of had that much direction when I was 19, and just that ability to kind of like, I have a weird idea, I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah, it's the world is your oyster. What an awful saying.
Yeah.
But I think just slow the boat down a little bit. The thing that I was talking at the Howland House about, I recommend different photographers that I was influenced by, and they're all 35 millimeter 1950s, 1960s, where again you only had, I remember doing photo shoots going, guys, I got 2 frames left.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all we're doing.
Yeah, and you really become very aware of what you're doing, as opposed to getting a card that you can do 700 pictures.
Yeah.
Which we all have.
Right.
I don't know how many you can do on a phone, but I just think if you're a little more, I wish people would look back at some of the old photography that I studied, and maybe they do. I used to love to go to the library and just sit and look at these picture books. There was a program during the Depression called the WPA, and the government gave grants to these photographers to go around to document the Depression. And it's all black and white.
Yeah.
And it was not Cartier-Bresson, it was Walker Evans, Dorothea Lange, and these photos are just epic. They're like a John Steinbeck movie. You just look at them and go, oh man. It was people living out of cars, a lot of segregation.
Yeah.
There's one shot of this black families in a line going to get food, and behind them is a billboard of this white couple in a car, by Chevy.
Yeah, like the model American family.
So the billboard is this mother and father, 2.3 children.
Yeah.
And then below it is this food line of black people. It's just,
yeah.
I can still see that, 60 years later when I looked at it, or 50 years later. It's just a point in time that you almost would say you made that up.
Yeah.
That's just too right.
Right, yeah.
And I look at these photos, the one book I recommend to anybody, it's called The Americas by Robert Frank. And he got, I think, a Guggenheim grant to go around just kind of, I think they're just throwing money at people. But they're just these great shots. They're not technically good. I think that's why maybe people might not take it serious, because some of them are out of focus.
Yeah.
Some of them are grainy. It's all available light. But they just capture. He drove around the country. It's segregation. It was in the late 50s, early 60s. That jailhouse rock kind of thing with the kids with the T-shirts and the cigarettes in their thing.
The beatniks and the Kerouac kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sophisticated people, street people. It's just an incredible book. And I can see people going, well, that picture's a little out of focus. Yeah, it is. But it's got a vibe to it.
But it's real.
It's got look at the juxtaposition of those things, and there's an emotion in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of stuff that, the thing that bothers me a little bit about digital, it's just a little too right.
Yeah.
It's a little too compressed.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back, and I'm repeating myself, music, analog versus digital.
Right.
There's something about the warmth of the, analog. And believe me, all my music friends,
I have to use a paper calendar. I can't use a digital one.
Bless your heart.
I don't know why. Digital ones do not work. There's something about writing it down and having a physical thing that can just flip open to, not be like, hang on, let me scroll to June. And so, yeah, there's certain things that I just feel, and I think everyone has those kind of things that they need an analog.
It's like people who write on typewriters as opposed to, or people that record on tape and that kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm recording on tape music. I'll get it right. It might take me but I'll get it right. Yeah. Whereas you do digital, you can take 10 different tracks and make one good track.
Right. Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not knocking that, but there's a certain compressedness I see when I look at, and I see some incredibly beautiful digital photography. But it's almost like it's too right.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks unnatural in a way. Yeah.
My son got a new TV and he was showing me the end game.
Oh yeah.
And he got 4K, whatever.
Yeah.
Again, you're losing me here.
Yeah.
And he had Blu-ray, 4K. My son's a real techno.
Yeah.
And he showed me part of that, and it was just like, oh my God, my wife had to leave the room. It was just too much for her to comprehend, but when you're getting hit with that information all the time, you kind of goes, oh.
I found that with RPX.
RPX?
It's a new movie format. There's more frames per second.
Oh,
I think.
okay, yeah.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
But I saw The Hobbit in RPX. Didn't love that movie in general. But there was something about...
I think I've heard other people have said that.
It was almost like when your brain, like when it sees motion, kind of expects a blur.
Yeah.
And it's so crisp and so clear,
exactly.
And there's so many frames per second that it never gets blurry, so even the motion just looks wrong and disconcerting to me.
I go back to the Beatles recorded their first album in a day.
Yeah.
And they were in Abbey Road. And it was like 10 o'clock at night, and they basically went in and they recorded their live show, and maybe 2 takes per song. And they got to the end, it was 10 o'clock at night, and Lennon's voice was all ripped to shreds, and George Martin said, we need another song. And they go, what? We need like 11 songs or whatever.
Yeah.
So they did Twist and Shout. And they did it like 10 o'clock at night. Lennon's voice was just ripped. They did 2 takes.
Yeah.
And the one take is one we listen to now, 50 years later.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, boom. And it might not be perfect, but there's a certain techno feel to even music when I listen to it now. You don't listen on speakers anymore.
Yeah.
It's compressed.
Yeah.
But when you go to a show, you can feel it. And that's what I kind of miss with music. You want to feel the bass.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah.
Because you're moving air.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, whatever analogy would be with your eyes. Not everything should be perfect. And you shouldn't have to fix everything. It's great that you can, but there's a photographer, her name was Margaret Burke White, and she was shooting around that time, about the late 40s, early 50s, and she was shooting with a medium format camera, which was the box, and it opened and the bellows came out.
Yeah.
And this is a woman doing incredible industrial photography. I can't even imagine what it was like being a woman doing that back in that day.
Right.
Those cameras are really, but every photo is just composed perfectly. It's black and white, which I gotta admit I have a real fondness for black and white.
Yeah.
And they're just like, wow, I can't, I've never, she's been somewhat ignored over the years. I just don't know how she did what she did when she did it. And because they're perfect photos.
Yeah.
There's a photographer that I like, his name is Cartier-Bresson.
Okay.
And he was a photographer in France in the 50s and 60s. And his whole thing was I'm trying to think of a point in time. And so he would go and he would sit in a little bistro. And he had a rangefinder camera, so he would sit and he'd see a couple to his right.
Mhm.
He'd put the camera on the table. And he would pre-focus it. Wouldn't even look through it.
Yeah.
But he'd keep his hand on the camera. And the camera's pointed at them. And he would watch them. And then maybe the guy would touch the girl's hand or something like that. And he'd click it. And it was just like perfect.
Yeah.
And there was a picture that he did of this little boy running through the streets of Italy. And he's coming down this alleyway, and he's got a baguette in one, and he's got a bottle of wine, and he's got shorts on, and he's going home.
Right.
There are people are waving to him like, oh, there's Pierre or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's so proud. He's got the baguette, he's got the bottle of wine. I don't know what else.
Yeah.
And he's just like a decisive moment is what kind of so. And there's another photo of this guy walking through the streets of Paris, and he's jumping over a puddle, and he catches him in mid-stride, and the reflection.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And they're just those little things that I still remember 30, 40 years later looking at. They're etched in my mind. Yeah. And I think it'd be nice to slow things down a little bit and get back to that kind of thing it might not be technically right, maybe even compositionally, but it's got a vibe to it, it's got a feel to it. Mm-hmm. And not everything has to be perfect.
So what I've become fascinated with, so we do the figure drawing group once a month, is a single line drawing.
Sure.
I put the pen down, I don't pick it up, and I try to capture what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And it's this weird, it's obviously not anatomically accurate because it's hard to, you're drawing the hand over here, then by the time you get to the other hand, your arm's in the way, so you can't even necessarily see how you drew the last one, you can't pick up your pen.
That's a great process.
And it's fascinating, but some of the times the stuff, when it's done, I'm like, damn, I'm really proud of that piece because it's got a real, it looks the way it's supposed to, mostly. But even like the fact that the imperfections are what kind of makes it really nice.
Exactly.
And interesting. And
well, the nice thing about that, there's a pen on paper.
Yeah.
There's that thing, and it's not lost. And again, I do not want to sound like the old guy sitting on the front porch that everything was better when I was, because that's not true. But when I see, most of my friends are artists, and I just see, them working on a canvas, and I go, man, that's just so cool.
Yeah.
And so, like Jesse, who runs the art.
Oh, sure, yeah. Jesse Fries.
Yeah, and Eddie doing his jewelry. I mean, it's hands-on thing. And, if you're not into that and you want to go take, 45 pictures of Plymouth Rock and post them, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're doing something.
Right.
It might not be something that I particularly am interested in.
And so Inebri-art's running into not really an issue, but so we have two things that we post on Facebook. We have a daily drawing challenge and a daily photo challenge.
I did see that when I went on your. Yeah, I saw the photo challenge, but I don't know if I'm gonna.
The photo challenge one, I'm always kind of like, I feel like they're taking the prompt will be like your computer mouse, and I feel like it's too instant camera, like click, I checked that box, I took the photo of the but like not really, I'm gonna think about how I'm gonna take the photo of the mouse. Am I gonna edit the photo afterwards? Am I gonna put it in a different angle that you don't usually look at it? And it's just too much like click, check the box, it's done.
One of the first things when I was in school, we had fine arts, we had commercial photography, and I don't know what the other one was. And one of the first assignments that we had was to take 3 pictures that will tell me something about you.
Oh, interesting.
So I went home and I photographed, I think my drums, or maybe my guitar, I don't remember. And I think I photographed a stack of records. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember what the third photo was. And I always thought that was an interesting assignment because I don't want you to tell me who you are. I want to look at those 3 photos. and those will tell me
who you are.
And I thought that was and so I don't teach photography. I wouldn't be arrogant enough to do it, but I always thought that was an interesting exercise of showing the process and how strong those photos could be, and like, oh, that person likes to cook, that person likes to read, and that person has a cat. But they were. I remember we did the assignment. I don't know how many days, and because everybody at the photography school was an artist. The photos were just, you could take each photo separately and look at it.
Yeah.
But it was like a really cool picture of a cat, not just okay. I got my cat.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I got my spatula because I like to cook.
Right.
So it was a spatula. It was like a cool shot of a spatula.
Right. Yeah.
And I always thought that was an interesting program. Like, okay, don't just make there's snapshots and there's photography.
Right.
And think about that a little bit. And again, back to my point, edit. The thing when I did the night shots in Plymouth is a lot of people go, where is that? I go, that's down by the Rock. It's I get one street light that just lit.
Yeah.
The waterfront is just really cool during the winter.
Yep.
And that's behind East Bay Grill or wherever it was. I did a couple shots right up here at the Cordage. I was driving home and it was a steamy, foggy night, and could have been in London.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and you don't need to know. The thing that I like about those photos, they go, geez, I never saw that before. I never saw that angle.
Yeah.
Or what's that little alleyway? That's up behind the library, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Geez, I never noticed that. Well, maybe. I think the thing, being a visual artist, is you're always looking. And I'll be driving around and I'll go, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll come back to that tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And you go back, you take a shot, and it sucks. But that's the thing that I like about digital is you've got the luxury to experiment.
Yeah. Without
the expense.
Right.
Back when I was a kid,
they cost you $7 to $10 every roll of film.
Yeah. You go, boy, I got nothing.
Yeah.
But there was something kind of cool waiting for that package to come and realize you got nothing.
I wasn't a photographer, but I think everyone from that era had that experience of finding a used roll of film and being like, I have no idea what this is. And then you send it off for a week and you come back and you'd be like, oh yeah. That was always a interesting experience.
Yeah, there's a romance to photography that it's kind of like, I don't like to really spend time looking at the back of my camera.
Yeah.
I shoot, I glance at it, and go, okay, maybe I need to move a little to the left, to the right, or that kind of thing. But I don't dwell on it until I get back.
Yeah.
And then I'll, go home, have dinner, pop them in, and go through them and go, boy, it was a good night, I got a couple shots. I don't like to fool with a lot of apps. I don't know enough about it. I use the computer like my darkroom, and you could crop, you could lighten and darken. That's basically.
Yeah.
I don't have the attention span to sit and work on a photo for an hour.
Yeah.
If you got to do that, is the photo really that good?
Yeah.
Maybe. This is just me. I'm pretty spontaneous. Like, no, I don't like that one, and I edited it down. But this one I might work on a little bit.
Yeah.
Look at it, and I think the best thing to do when you're doing that is to walk away for a little while and not look at it, and go, geez, I think I'll just crop that telephone pole out. There's probably an app that I could
do that. Yeah. Just remove the telephone pole.
Yeah. Cropping is really important.
Yeah.
So I shoot wide and then crop. I really don't need that. And do that, and then kind of it kind of condenses the photo. And then I'll go to, I'll desaturate it and make it black and white. The black and white is okay digitally. I don't feel like it's like the black and white I used to get when I would shoot film, but it is what it is. And then you adjust the contrast, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to spend an hour photoshopping a street light.
Yeah.
I just don't have the interest in doing that. It's either good or it isn't. All that stuff. I remember I was doing something, someone came in and they had to show me a photo on their phone, and it took them about 20 minutes to find it. They're doing the thing.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my God. and the guy had taken the sky from one photo, the beach from another photo, somebody else's kids.
Yeah.
Somebody else's dog. And I went, he goes, what do you think of that? And I go, it looks like a composite photo.
Right.
It's amazing you can do that. I mean, it boggles my mind that I don't have any idea how to do that.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. I didn't want to tell the guy.
Right.
He spent 8 hours doing it, but he goes, what do you think of that? I said, the worst thing, it's interesting.
Yeah.
When you get that, you go, oh boy. That's nice.
Tell me you hate it. I'd rather you tell me you hate it.
Well, or someone goes, that's nice.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I like, you want a response to anything that you do.
Yeah.
And I tell people, I like it when people don't like my work.
Anytime anyone asks me for an opinion on something like that, I always say, do you want my actual opinion, or do you just want me to say it's nice? And they always say your actual opinion, but it puts them in a mindset of like, okay, he's going to be like honestly critical, and it's not to be like mean. He's giving me the option. And so then when you're like, you try to do the compliment sandwich thing where you're like, this is what I like, this is what's terrible, and this is good.
Yeah, I don't want to say I kind of like. I learn more from criticism.
Sure.
As long as it's constructive criticism.
Right.
Like, okay, that photo sucks.
Right. Why? Yeah.
And it also depends on who it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my wife is my best critic. Like, what I'll do is I'll do a shot, and I'll say, what do you think? She goes, that's not really happening. Or, that's pretty good. That kind of thing. So, sometimes I veto her.
Yeah.
And then I'll my kids are the same way. And they'll go, that's a really cool shot. That came out good. But you become complacent if everyone, it's brilliant. Everything you do is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I know but when you just go, what? No, I just don't think that really is working. Why? Well, I think that whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Because a lot of times you don't see it.
Right.
Until they pull it out and they go, you're right.
Oh God. And then it's one of those things that's so frustrating when someone's like, I drew some character or something, and they're like, it's fairly proud of it, whatever. And someone's like, the left arm's way bigger than the right arm. And then you look down and you're like, oh my God, how did I not see that? And then
that's all you can see.
Now it's ruined. Yeah. Now, burn it. I don't care.
Yeah. No, it's, like I did a show somewhere with my artwork, and a good friend of mine, Kevin, down the Cape, who we went to school together, and he goes, man, you got some pretty crappy shots in here. And I go, you think so? So we did the show, and then, he said, I said, go have a glass of wine, we'll talk later.
Yeah.
So then everybody was leaving, and we went around picture to picture.
Yeah.
And he had very valid points.
Yeah.
I don't think I agreed with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And Kevin was somewhat of an opinionated kind of guy. But it was a great conversation. He goes, that's not working for me. I go, why? He goes, I see. I don't agree with you. I wouldn't have framed it and put it up, you jerk. But that's the great thing about what you do. It's an ebb and flow. I mean, again, to our point we were talking earlier, not everyone's going to like you or what you do.
Yep.
And that kind of thing. And when you do something and everybody just blows smoke, you're not really learning anything.
Right.
So the thing that I'm really, really proud of is I still have a passion for it. If I don't take a photo every couple days, I get kind of itchy.
Yeah.
And because people go, are you still working? I said, yeah, I need to eat.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing my own artwork because it's the next photo.
Yeah, and I think, when we decide we're going to interview creative people, that's one of the things that has kind of rung true with everybody is they always say like, oh, if I didn't play music professionally, I would still play music or whatever. And I think it's for whatever weird radioactive artist bit us that like we have this compulsion to create things that didn't exist, whether it's a podcast, whether it's music, whether...
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter if no one sees it. I'm still creating it. Like, I still need to do that.
I want to do a book on these night shots because, one, I like them.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is, getting the print medium. I don't know how to deal with it right now. There's people that will digitally do it. You can order books. So I'm looking into doing a limited run on our little coffee table book of my night shots.
Yeah.
And when you do something like that, you've got 20 people that'll buy it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're related to you.
Yeah.
If they don't buy it, you don't like them anymore.
Yeah.
So
I don't love my children anymore.
Yeah,
you didn't buy my book. Yeah.
So then what do you do with the other 20?
Yeah.
Or 30? It's like when my son had bands back in the day, they would do CDs or cassettes, and then they would have to order 500 of them.
Right.
And maybe they could sell 100 at gigs, and then you had 400, and the band would break up.
Yep. And now you have all these CDs. Yeah.
And so I'm looking for trying to find a way, because it's very ego driven, because I want people to see these.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't have a problem with Facebook. I do post things, and I don't post. I was doing a thing about, I lose track of time. 4 or 5 years ago when I started on Facebook, I was on the computer doing some work, and something said, today is Taco Day.
Yeah.
And I went, I got a shot of tacos that I did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
The great thing about digital is I can
drop it in.
I go to my external drive and I find a shot I did, Lord knows how long ago, of a taco. I'm going to post that. Today is Taco Day.
Yeah.
So next morning, I'm doing my emails and all that stuff. I wonder what the food is today. Today is, so for about 2 or 3 years, I was nailing it a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Because I had this incredible archive
of stuff, and there's a national day for everything.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then people, I wouldn't do it. They go, "Hey, are you okay?" I haven't seen it. But then a friend of mine,
it's burrito day. I was really looking forward for a burrito.
But the funny thing is, a friend of mine's wife came up and she says, "I love your food shots. Where do you get them?" And I went, "What do you mean, where do I get them?" She goes, "Well, you had pizza day the other day. You had hot dog the other day." I go, "Those are my shots."
Yeah.
I go, "Photo by Ed Nute. You did all those?" And I go,
yeah.
Because the other thing, the archive I have, because you do have this load of unused photos. And,
sure.
And most people that I work with, they don't care at that point.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and that was, and I'm not a big Facebook fan of politically.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but it is nice to do a shot and post it and get some feedback.
Yeah.
It isn't like someone buying the print.
Right.
Or going to a show, because there's not a lot of places to do shows anymore.
But someone might not buy a photo of a hot dog, but if you get 40 people being like, "Oh my God, this made me hungry," you're like, "Oh yeah, well, that is pretty good."
Well, yeah, I mean, this stuff is sitting there collecting dust.
Yeah.
And so, what was it? Baklava day. I got a shot of baklava, and I remember the story. It was for the Cape Cod Cranberry Association, and the client, she was looking at it, she goes, "I don't know, that the baklava's not talking to me." And I went, "Okay, go have a cup of coffee." So I tweaked the lights and moved around. She goes, "Now the baklava's talking to me." That's great.
Yeah.
Or and I'm kind of running out of food shots because I've kind of exhausted my library. People go, "Will you stop it? You're making me hungry." That's
great. Yeah.
Or I do a shot of a night shot. They go, "Boy, that's really that's a good," because you want that feedback, because you learn from that feedback.
Yeah.
And then you file that away and go, but you don't want to overdo it.
Mm-hmm.
And just keep doing that.
Right.
Because what did I think I did pizza day, because I got a lot of pizza photos. And
well, you must. You have a day's worth of cheese pizza.
Oh. My external drive is just hilarious when you look at it.
Mm.
But I've got a singer. She's a jazz singer, guitar player who I've known for a long time. She's kind of coming out of a little bit of retirement, and so I've got to photograph her. I love those old black and white of the old jazz people in New York with the cigarette smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of, there's a photographer, I can't think of his name, who just, man, he nailed all those shots of Dexter Gordon and Miles Davis. And so she goes, I need a headshot. And of course, everyone's very vain. She goes, can you make me look 30 years younger? I said, there's probably an app for that, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I said, let's go for that old kind of black and white. She's a guitar player.
Yeah.
Let's go for that kind of Billie Holiday vibe. And so I'm going to be doing that. And then I've got another friend who, she's putting out a more of an Americana photo. And she called me the other day and said, I want to get a shot of my guitar. Just the guitar.
Yeah.
I went, okay. So I'm trying to think of where can we put the guitar? What, I can put it in the studio, obviously.
Right, yeah.
But that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Where can we juxtaposition the guitar around here to get a shot like, ooh.
Yeah.
I've never seen the guitar
like that.
Yeah. I don't want to do railroad tracks because that's been done today.
Yeah, it's cliche.
I do have a couple ideas. I'm going to meet with her tomorrow. So it's nice that people will approach me and go, what do I think? And then I don't know. I know she's putting out I can't imagine she's putting out a CD. I don't know what format she's putting this out on. But if you can reinvent the wheel occasionally and kind of go, I never saw a piece of baklava that looked like that, or the guitar in a place that's kind of the thing that I like most is if I do a show and I see people really looking at the photos. I don't title my work.
Okay.
I don't want to preconceive my thought process.
Right.
I want you to do it because people go, where is that? That's really cool. I go, yeah, that's it. That's all I want. Or that photo just made. I have a landscape. I was doing landscapes for a while, and a friend of mine bought it, and she says, and I always say to people when they buy a photo, let me know where you put it.
Oh, interesting.
And they go, yeah, I put it next to my bed. It's the first thing I see when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
I love that photo. And I go, cool. So I was working with an art director years ago, and I would give him a print every Christmas because he gave me a lot of work. So we were invited to the house.
Yeah.
Chris and I. And so I'm walking around the house going, where are all the photos that I gave this guy? I go in the bathroom. They're all in the bathroom. And I went, he goes, Ed, everybody goes to the bathroom.
Everyone sees it.
And I went, cool. I'm so flattered when someone, I would give photos away.
Yeah.
That they want a piece of anything that I've done in their house. But I'm always curious where they put it.
Yeah. I remember the first time I was selling prints and someone was looking at a piece or something and I said something about it and they go, oh, I know, I have this. It's on my wall at home. And I was just like, sorry, what? What happened? It's just...
Well, I try to donate. I was doing the Rotary Club, and I kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And I'll bump into, I have one of your prints in my house. And I go, really? That's pretty cool. But then about a year ago, a friend of mine called me, and his daughter had forgotten about her senior portraits.
Yeah.
He's like, no, this is earlier this year. This is like February. He goes, Ed, I got a problem. It was a Wednesday. We need to get the photo to the yearbook or whatever by Monday. And I went, I don't do that. And I said, and I hadn't seen his daughter in a long time.
Yeah.
What was her name? Her name was Charlie. And so I said, yeah, I'll do the best I can.
Right.
So luckily we got a day that was kind of mild. And I met this girl, and she was just a pistol. She was great. She was like 17 going on 30.
Yeah.
Hi, Ed, how you doing? Kind of punky, just very confident. And we're driving to, I've got a couple spots that I like to photograph people when I do that. And she just was great. It was so easy.
Yeah.
She had so much personality. Well, I didn't know what to expect. I don't know many 17
right.
high school
kids. Yeah.
I expected some kind of, you want to, up against the tree kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I did the shots, and her mother called me and says, oh my God, you just captured her. I said, well, half of it was her.
Right, yeah.
I only had the camera, But she was just great. I think she might have had a nose ring, had some colors in her hair, and I went, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
I can't really take a bad picture of this kid.
It's always like you get these people that either Zoom in or whatever for an interview, and it's just like sometimes within like 2 minutes you're like, oh yeah, like this is like we're friends now, you know.
Yeah. It's like I was doing a shoot for a catering company, and I met with the chef, and it was like, why do you want to meet with me? I want to figure out what we're doing. I find the pre-production stuff really, like I'm going to meet tomorrow with my friend who wants to do the guitar thing. I said, can you give me a copy of the music?
Sure.
And people go, why? I want to hear what it's, is it Americana?
Yeah, because it helps you kind of like frame.
Oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Is it kind of, is it, well, everyone, is it Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
Is it Joan Baez? What is it? That makes me figure out. So I said, can I meet with you before the shoot? And, chefs before 12 o'clock are pretty angry people.
Yes.
And he was just, all right. Oh, no, God, this is going to be a rough shoot, this guy. So a couple of days later, a week later, we do the shoot. God, this guy, he brought out food that was just breathtaking. He just rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
I thought, oh God, if his food is as bad as his attitude. And he still had an attitude.
Yeah.
But I went, oh man, this stuff is great.
Yeah.
And the thing that's cool about food photography is I bring a monitor with me, and we do a shot, boom, they look at it.
Oh, that is cool.
And they get sucked right into it.
Yeah.
They're part of the photo shoot. And it's the same thing when I do, when I photograph my friend, the jazz guitar player.
Yeah.
I have the monitor over to the side. I don't shoot and look. I do about 10 shots. And I go, okay, let's take a break. Let's take a look. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like the way I look there. I like that angle.
Yeah.
I don't like the light there. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Do a few more. A few more.
Yeah. So then you kind of like refine it down.
And then they become part of the photo shoot. And it's the same thing with the food. Like this guy said, what was it? It was a little part of the food he really wanted. I think it was like chicken parm or something.
Yeah.
He goes, I really like that spot there. And I went, okay. He goes, that's it.
Yeah.
That getting a little closer to that, or get a little more light in there.
Yeah.
Or I try to throw things off balance a little bit. I don't want people to be uncomfortable, but I want them to be drawn to the composition. And if it's a little, that kind of thing. And then that's really the best thing about digital photography is your subject or what they make become part of the photo shoot. Because a lot of times we would shoot Polaroids, and the Polaroids were basically just to make sure the composition
was right. Yeah.
We didn't know what we had till a couple of days later.
Yeah.
We got the film back, and they look at it with the little
viewfinder thing.
A big light table.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember those.
And 35 millimeter slides.
Yeah.
And so having the subject, the client, whatever you want to call it, be part of the photo shoot, but really be part of it. Like, no, I don't like that angle. Okay, give me a second. Boom. That's cool. Can we do more of that?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. And that's where you take the technology has made it easier for us to create.
Yeah.
But
Well, Ed, this was a pleasure.
We could probably talk about it all day.
I'm looking at the time going, if I don't stop now, my editor is going to kill me.
Well, I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Man.
There's a lot of really good things happening in Plymouth.
Yeah.
My studio's in the PAC building, and they're really doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, they're a great bunch.
And then you've got Jesse and Eddie.
Eddie Fry. Yeah, Jesse Fry's Eddie Murray.
In the Art Center in Plymouth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
you got Kat at Inky Hands.
Oh, I haven't seen her since she's had her surgery in her hand.
Oh, I didn't even know she had surgery on her hand.
And there's some really, Jim Curran is a good...
Oh, I love Jim.
And so support the arts.
Yeah.
Get out, go see these people. You don't have to buy something, just go in and talk to them.
Or go make something yourself.
Yeah, and the thing about photography is just keep doing it. There's no... You can't teach it. It's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall?
Practice. Yep.
And, you know, people go, geez, you're a pretty good guitar player. You go, well, I've been doing it every night art is like a muscle.
Yeah.
And you've got to exercise that muscle. But the other thing is support other people and look at what they're doing. And, you know, I'd love to see more of an art community in Plymouth and do that. The little bohemian people creating, because there's some incredibly talented chefs.
Oh, yeah.
What you guys are doing electronically, the Art on the Green, where I bumped into you the other day. You know, support these people because it's important. It's probably more important now than ever to look at the art that they're creating and support them. You don't have to buy something, but just talk to them and do that kind of thing. And what you guys are doing are great.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Do you want to give your website so people can keep an eye out for the potential book?
It's Nute Photography, Nute photography.com. I am on Instagram, which is Nute Photo, and I am on Facebook. I think it's Edward Nute.
Yeah.
I think, but the only problem, and we'll cut this thing off, is when you put nude photography and nude photography. And
I bet you that happened.
I was not aware of that till about 15 years ago when people started going, you know what happens when I call your name up? Because my name is Nute.
Yeah.
And so just let your imagination run with that.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah. So
Ed,
it was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yep, thanks.
And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. So thanks again for listening.